You come into our atelier and we transform things that no one wants into something that people do want. But that's also about upcycling, is that we're limited with our design. But actually, when you're limited to what you have in front of you, you're constantly testing your design and your processes.
Hi, I'm Andrea Chung, and this is not the fashion podcast you were expecting. Welcome to Fashion Our Future. Today I'm going to introduce you to Anna Foster of E.L.V Denim, who is a leader in the upcycling movement. When your main resource is considered waste, your design process is already miles harder than mainstream fashions. Anna, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now, this is super fun because we have known each other for quite a few years and we've done a few interviews together, but I'm so excited to have you here to talk all about how you invented your own supply chain in some ways.
Yeah, yes, I identified an issue that I felt existed in the industry. And I think what I try and say, what I believe is that I'm not an environmentalist, activist, but I'm an environmental enthusiast. I think most of my decisions are based on common sense, having that moral compass when you know something is right or something is wrong. And having been in the industry for 25 years as a stylist and a fashion editor, I represented that kind of industry, and I just had this feeling inside that like, this isn't right. And then I think so many people now are having these epiphany moments when they're thinking, oh my God, what have I been? And then you kind of thinking, oh my goodness. And I really wanted to get back to that part of what I fell in love with fashion was when you find that really special piece, that you have a story, that when you purchase it, you have that attachment for it. And because it's so special to you, you look after it. And that really got diluted towards, the 90s and, the early noughties, where there was suddenly so much being produced and you got something and you just moved on so quickly. Right. And I, being part of the industry where you were lucky enough to be given gifts by designers, or you went to sample sales and you knew you had something really unique to you. And I just thought, why does that feeling have to be just for the fashion industry, for the small few within that? And everyone should have this. Everyone should have that joy when they've found something that is unique to them. And by upcycling lots of pieces of garments that have this incredible material inside them already, you are valuing the material already exists. And I was learning so much just as the weeks went on and I started looking more into it. I was thinking, oh my goodness, there's so much material out there that no one is really loving. So I wanted to create a collection where you really had every single piece was unique. And by upcycling pieces that already exist with amazing material in it, it means that you're creating one-off garments. So this pair of jeans is unique to me. So I'm going to hold on to that. I'm going to make sure I look after this pair of jeans because it fits me perfectly. It fits me like a glove. And so therefore I will look after it. And so it's designed by the material that's in it. It's designed to last a lifetime. The design is designed to last a lifetime because there are seams within the jean, which means they can adapt and grow and tailor. So if you're giving this to a consumer or a customer, making it easy for them to make the right decision. I want everyone to have those unique pieces, which means that they're going to look after them, have them for years to come. Exactly. We say you buy something when you're 18 and have it when you're 80.
I love it. Actually, I think the name of your brand speaks to the uniqueness of your supply chain as well, because it stands for East London.
Yes, East London Vintage Denim. And everyone says, oh, E.L.V. And I'm like, no, we're not. I suppose we are the E.L.Vs. We are the little shoemakers. You come into our atelier and we transform things that no one wants into something that people do want.
And is your supply chain still mainly based in East London?
Oh, well, our kind of manufacturing supply is definitely based in East London. I put a pin in a map where I live and where the studio is, which is about 5 minutes away from each other, and created a 5-mile radius around the studio. And I said, well, this is where we're going to produce.
Right.
I'd already established connections with small ateliers and denim manufacturers that already exist in East London. And there is such a heritage and a history behind that industry. And if I'm honest with the whole manufacturing, I find so bizarre that you don't utilize the skill sets that are local to you. I also believe, this is my opinion, that you only really manufacture abroad to make it cheaper. Often the skill set is local to you. It's just you choose whether you want to utilize that and support that, or whether you want to go somewhere else. I mean, it's not for everyone, I get that, but for me it's really important. And I do believe that if I've proven that this business model works, that everybody should be looking locally. Of course, if there are a skill set that you don't have locally, then of course, but that's also about upcycling, is that we're limited with our design. I'm limited to what's in front of me. And I would argue the case that actually, well, what do you think? Do you think it's your limitations, the easier to design when you've got a whole range of, the world's your oyster, you can pick your materials and pick your pieces so you can create it. But actually, when you're limited to what you have in front of you, you're constantly testing your design and your processes, because you want to create this really elevated pieces, but you are limited with the designs and the constructions you have in front of you. For in a circular economy, really, you want something to exist as it is and give it to someone else that loves it. Say you don't want that jacket anymore, I can't imagine that you wouldn't, but if you did, you'd want to pass it on to someone that loved it equally. The second best thing is to rework and restructure, deconstruct and reconstruct the garment. In a circular economy, that's the second best thing, and that's what we do. On a last resort, you want to degrade, you want to kind of recycle the materials, because that's really the last resort, especially now when we've got all this information about recycled fabrics. Aren't they great? But, all recycled polyesters, all plastics, everything is fossil fuels within these recycled materials. Why can't we love what already exists?
Right. And what also exists, like you said, close to home, because one thing that really struck me when you were talking about this 5-mile radius and skills that are close to you is, well, first of all, a lot of people don't really know that in London you have such amazing craftsmen, or if that's not the right word, like skilled fashion designers or like manufacturers.
Yeah, I mean, lots of fashion designers are based here. London is such a hub of creativity, and lots of the small ateliers get used for sampling, but then actually when it gets to production, it is offshored. And we've found so many amazing people that, because upcycling is part of the future. It really has. And when I started, people were like, oh, I don't know if we'd be able to do that. And because you're giving them something that's new and a new idea and a new concept, and you don't fit within that kind of line or path that everyone is used to doing. But we've found lots of really incredibly visionary people as well that want to be on this journey with us. Because one thing I say to them when I meet all these ateliers, and I've got great close relationships with all of them, is, look, this is where we're going now. And if you establish the methods that we are helping you learn and we are modifying with you, then you're part of the future. So people are going to want to turn to you as also experts. I mean, I'm trying to be this change maker, not just for the good of E.L.V Denim and myself, but for the good of everybody, and try and share that information. Fast forward now from then to here, and I'm having conversations a week with different luxury brands, with luxury houses, as they have an inventory problem that's growing and growing. And with the EU, with their extended producer responsibility, the directive that's come that by next January, you cannot destroy any garments. You have a risk, which is amazing. But everyone is now having these conversations about what are we going to do with that? And if I can present upcycling becomes a marketing activation a bit. It's like a bit of a PR, a bit of a marketing exercise when you do a capsule collection. But all the projects and all the collaborations that I've done have proven proper generating revenue models. And as soon as you say that, as soon as you start putting dollars or pound signs onto a project, then everyone takes notice. Whether it's the right way of it coming around, whether it should have come from the moral good, I don't know. We're now in a position where if we can create a generating revenue stream from something that is a problem and turn it into a beautiful solution, then I think that is information to be shared and not held just for us. And it's not that I want to go in and partner with every creative director there is, because that's not necessarily possible. But what is possible is to go in and teach every brand or every house that wants to have a viable solution. These are the methods, these are the ways you do it. We can point you in, because lots of it is common sense innovation. That's what I built E.L.V Denim on, trying to make common sense decisions. You know, we do pleating techniques, we do all these different bleaching and over dyeing. And every time we sit as a team and go, okay, we don't really have the data to say, is this has a big impact on the environment or not? And then we say, okay, well, this jean is otherwise going to go into landfill. It's got stretch in it. This plastic is never going to decompose. So why don't we really rethink it, do a little bit of kind of like home bleaching, over dyeing, and suddenly you're creating this thing that was considered imperfect and unusable into something that is so beautiful, is so unique, and you've suddenly given it the value that it should have had in the first place.
So I kind of want to dial it back a bit because you've said so many interesting things, and I'm just like, well, I just want to, but I don't want to interrupt you because you just keep coming up with like more points like, Okay, so I really want to talk to you about something that you just sparked in my mind, which is you collaborate with a lot of luxury brands as well, and yourself, E.L.V is considered a luxury brand, and you are made in Britain.
Yeah.
And I think that just like struck me, because often we talk about made in labels, and I think luxury is very much responsible for this perception that it is only made in that country. In reality, it's not, because a lot of the time you have so many different categories, so many different wants, that it's not always possible to make it in only Italy, only France, or wherever. But you actually offer a made in Britain solution. And so many luxury British brands want to be made in Britain, but really just aren't.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's common sense to do it. You as a brand, as a designer, you are taking this beautiful material for whatever purpose, and you send it off to a factory abroad, and then they phone you and go, oh, I'm sorry, Anna, we've made a mistake, or something's gone wrong. And by the time you've travelled out there, again, more carbon footprint, got to the atelier, and it's all wrong. You've got 1,000 dresses that are sitting there that can't be done. And so if you were local, you could have got there, sorted out the problem, and it's just, I guess it becomes economies of scale at some point. For us, it's always going to, even no matter how we scale, how we grow, we're always going to be having our roots in London. We sort at source, we manufacture at source. But so because we source all our supply chain we call it raw material. I know it's a little bit kind of confusing, so we never cut from a roll of fabric, we never use any raw virgin fibers, nothing. But when you come to put your work into a system that everyone else uses, there's only a little section that says raw material. So we've kind of called all our vintage jeans, or our cord, or our blazers, or the bed linen that we upcycle from hotels, raw material. But when you take that raw material in the UK, we're just dealing with things that we have here. But I really believe that my model can be expanded, and we can start, we have plans for next year to set up in America.
That's so exciting.
And so we're manufacturing and distributing from there, because we distribute worldwide. And so actually, if we can grow E.L.V Denim and put it in different places and blueprint that model as well for other brands, then it's okay, well, why shouldn't you have manufacturing hubs, and you design and you manufacture from there?
Localized supply chains.
Always.
I do want to ask, because I think if it's like the first time someone's hearing about E.L.V Denim, they're like, denim? Okay, why denim?
Well, thank you for asking. Denim, because denim was designed as a really hard-wearing fabric. It really is designed to last the test of time. And I'm not talking about the stretch denim with loads of elastane in it. Yeah. That is a whole nother podcast story. It's an ick. It is an ick for everybody. Just don't, honestly, if you take anything away from any of the conversations, it's please don't buy stretch denim. We have to Google stretch denim decomposed, and you have that really, really striking image of the outline of the jeans, which isn't, they aren't there, but it's just those lines.
So what didn't biodegrade or degrade?
Yeah, it's not designed. Yeah. And stretch and denim aren't designed to be together. I think again in the noughties and early 2000s, it was, let's add stretch and denim, and became all these skinny jeans, and it was the whole rage. But actually, after a while, stretch and the cotton that are such great friends at first, after about 6 months, they warp and they weave, like, oh my God, get away from me. And they try and get away from each other and they can't. So the whole of that material is distorted. So really, stretch is the thing to avoid.
Is that even without tumble drying, that cotton and elastane will start to separate?
Of course, yeah.
Okay.
They're not, stretch denim is not designed to last. Only rigid denim is really designed to last. And that's what I fell in love with as a kid, getting my first pair of vintage jeans from Camden Market, wearing them for years. I mean, and this material, though, is not always given the duty and it's not with respect that it deserves. You know, you've got so many jeans that are misshapen, you've got damaged jeans now, you've got jeans that are really large sizes. E.L.V Denim, we don't take garments, as I said, as part of the circular economy ethos that would already be loved by someone else. So the small sizes up to kind of 32, 34, 36, we tend to kind of leave those alone because somebody could come in, take it and wear it. We want the large size, the misshapen, the damaged, the real ones that are being pushed to the side. We want to revalue them and give them a new life. So by taking all that denim and reworking it and really respecting that material, and I think I have a duty to really give that denim the life that it deserves, the life it should lead. It shouldn't be sitting there in a box, you know, traveling all the way around the world, you know, as part of this textile waste that literally just constantly moves. We should be able to right this wrong. And I think that sometimes there is a kind of, I guess, and we touched on this like in some of our conversations before, this upcycling can have this kind of Etsy crafty vibe to it. And for me, there is even more pressure, not pressure because I love what I do, but it's this, we had an example yesterday in the studio. We kind of made a little kind of new tweak, a little kind of embellishment that we do for our jeans. And I was like, oh, this just feels too basic. It doesn't feel we've pushed ourselves enough. And lots of those times we have a go away, come back, and we have a more elevated, a more unique, a more innovative product. Just by giving it that time and that space to think, I believe that I give myself the task of creating really elevated, elegant designs so people have no recollection or no thought process of what it could be before. You know, people buy our product because they love how it makes them feel and it makes them look good. So many women have terrible time trying to source a pair of jeans that fits. And as you say, why denim? Because I've seen so many people that are traumatized by buying a pair of jeans. And I know that sounds slightly over the top, but when you find a pair of jeans that fit, that makes you look good, it gives you such confidence. So I wanted to revalue all the material I could, create these unique designs and give them the opportunities for them to be tailored, to be modular. If you damage a part, you can replace it. We can repair, we do free alterations, you know, trying to really give this material. And there are so many billions of pairs of jeans out there.
This idea of upcycling has now become so trendy, which I know is annoying for me to say, but we'll call it as it is. It's become something that's been very attractive for other people who want to kind of delve into that, which I think is cool. But, you know, now that you've just said billions of jeans, I'm like, okay, cool. So there's supply.
And I think when I started, very few people upcycling. You know, I know you've had Ursula de Castro here talking as well, and she's later, you know, in another series. And, you know, there were very few people as part of her entourage that were talking and people were listening. And so when I started, there wasn't that demand for upcycling. So I was getting these jeans all the time. This is amazing. And then suddenly I was going to my suppliers and they were like, oh no, someone else is competing for your what you want, which is the things that no one else wants. So I'm always thinking I'm the only person wanting this because it's really sitting on its own, feels really, you know, neglected and unloved, and I'm giving it the love that it needs. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah. As more people are wanting to upcycle, but then all those people that found it's really hard, and they don't have the determination or the skill set or the long-term vision to see it all the way through. Right. And so now we have the market kind of back, and all our suppliers are going, oh, do you want those jeans? I'm like, oh, right, they're available for us now, are they? Whereas before they were trying to, you know, barter us off against each other to see who would give them the best price.
When I've spoken to brands who really specialize in selling secondhand designer or even upcycling, they talk about how they source their raw materials or their products, I suppose, from places like charity shops, that then go to the rag and bone industry, that then get sold by the kilo or tons, and that sometimes this is separated by material, whether that's like cashmere, wool, cotton, denim. Sometimes I suppose you can't really separate it because the labels would have been washed away. Is that how it works when you source for vintage denim?
So we source our vintage denim from vintage wholesalers,
Right.
who will have, what happens is everyone gives their all first world countries and gives all their clothes to the charity shops thinking that that's the best thing to do. The charities can't absorb everything that they get given, understandably. So they work with textile associations who will collect all that waste. UK textile associations used to sort everything in the UK. Unfortunately now, because the labour is too expensive, they offshore it to their partners in the Far East, Middle East, or Asia, who then sort it into categories, and then we buy it back. So it is this ridiculous path of going backwards and forwards. And so the same jean that maybe has not, we've missed, one of our wholesalers will go back and forwards to Pakistan 15 times.
Wow.
More. So when I see this denim, I'm like, I've got to rescue it as much as possible. And then so we source it there. We then take it back to our studio where it's washed, it's graded, it's given about 7 or 8 grading measurements, because we want to make sure that we are extracting the most as possible from that jean. If it can't be turned into a jean, the sections get cut out and it gets turned into a ready to wear. And then with all we have now, what we have is like a cookie cutter. And so we take the rejected part of the jean, click and cookie cutter loads of strips. We construct our own material. And now we're making our own garments from this, we call it the clicking. I mean, that's a much more sophisticated way of explaining it. So we're creating these amazing capes, and they're just exquisite items. And that is from something that nobody would want, nobody would think of would be valuable. And so someone would disregard it. So we're trying to give a life, a voice, because I believe your clothes sing stories of where you bought them, how you wear them. And even the threads that we don't use, we turn them into paper, and then we turn it into our swing tags and note cards and note sets.
I actually have a notebook you made from this with me now.
Oh, perfect.
Don't worry, we won't do a show and tell. Don't worry, I'll spare everyone, but I am using it right now.
You want to try and give use for all that material, because denim and cotton is such an incredible fibre that it really can be turned into so many new things.
Would it be too reductive to say that your supply chain more or less informs your design process?
Always. Yeah, we design from what's in front of us. We're not someone that can go, oh, I want to do that in green. Can't find that green. So we generally source. So we have it's our supply and demand of what we want and what we get is a little bit turned upside down. But I really believe that makes our designs and our techniques and our vision so much more valuable and so much more special, because we are designing with such intent and purpose.
And I do like that it is inclusive, because I think when people hear, you don't take the smaller sizes, you take the larger sizes, that they're like, so what about us? But I remember when I was writing about you in my book, one thing that I really loved is that, first of all, the retailers who would have bought those sizes are not stocking the larger sizes anyway. So you can't go to your, local, whatever you call them, like pre-loved shop or whatever, and find those sizes anyway.
Yeah. They're not taking them. So there is you can get them. That we're not taking all of it. Believe me, there are billions. So we are not exhausting the supply, but we're just making sure that material does have a purpose. And having a dress that is made from 52 pieces of extracted denim, and having that story, because then your clothes are your story that you can tell when you meet people. And it's just a nice topic of conversation. And actually having a localized supply chains, we have really strong and close relationships with all the people we work with. Even the laundrette where we wash all the denim is run by a guy called Korosh. You go and see him, you meet all these people that come to that community space just to talk to someone. I met one amazing lady who does birthday cakes. I tried to coax this girl going back to her math and English. She was dropping out of school just from being in that place. And actually social responsibility and social environmental is so important, that social sustainability has such an important part to play. It isn't just about profit and money. And I think it's about revenue, yes, but where the profit and revenue are just as important, if we can give back what we're putting out there, and that's what sustainability is, putting back what you've taken away. That's really, and I think any brands that say, they're sustainable, are they giving back what they've taken.
Exactly. And I think that that's a really valuable lesson that brands that you collaborate with can learn from as well. Can you speak to kind of which processes they've found quite easy to adopt and they've like jumped on board, like, yeah, we can do this. We can see the data, it works, like we can do this, because you were talking about how it's quite profitable, versus what is probably a little bit harder for a larger brand to incorporate into their supply chain or shift.
Yeah, when I did the collaboration with Gabriella Hurst, Gabby and I created this design together, which was amazing. But then the people in her team were like, well, can't you source these lengths? And I said, you don't go into a shop and just find a whole load of jeans with size 36 inside seam. We have to literally get into the bales to try and source them. So you're just explaining that actually the limitations. And so then you add parts of the design, you make the design suit the need of what the person wants. And I think with the collaborations, that really tests us, because we're trying to satisfy what someone else wants, but also trying to, not limit themselves, but get them to understand our limitations and vice versa. So you get that really nice meeting point at the end and everyone feels great about it afterwards. But then with the Outnet collaboration, we were really taking their raw material, purchasing it, and only creating our design, my design, our IP around it. So from that, they've got all this knowledge now. They've got all this insight of how they can, as a retailer, take what they are holding on to as wasted stock that's sitting in a warehouse, that's not dead stock, but it's on their balance sheet. And this is the thing with brands, they've got a huge amount of warehouse stock on their balance sheet, and how to make that profitable and how not to get rid of it.
Yes.
And actually turn it into something beautiful. And that's where hopefully we can come in.
I thought that was a really cool project, because that was one of the first times that existing inventory was being used to create something else, and something else that was very wearable, because I was also part of that. And that was really, I loved it. It was super cool. So I actually have a final question, if that's okay.
Of course.
I would love to hear your recommendation for a book, podcast, even a person we should follow, something that has been really helpful or inspiring to you.
Well, I mentioned I really believe in looking after oneself as well. We live in a very high pressurized world, and I really try and advocate like 10 minutes of meditation in the morning if I can. We always live busy lives, but actually it's something to ground yourself, because we're all these high achievers that we're trying to innovate and try to make change. But how are we going to do that if we're not looking after ourselves? So as much as I would like to say I do it every day, I don't. But when I do, I really value that time. And so I use a Calm app, and I really recommend downloading it and just doing it every day for 10 minutes. It doesn't take a lot of time. And really, sometimes it can just make you see the positive in all situations. I try and live this, always see a cloud. There's always the silver lining to the cloud, and, trying to see the positive in something that actually turn it into maybe a learning. And, we're not perfect. We cannot solve everything all the time or in the first instance, but we can give ourselves the space to be able to look at it. And that's what I believe is a really positive way of looking at it.
That is an amazing way to finish. Self-reflection is key. Thank you so much, Anna.
Thank you for having me.
I mean, it's all in the name, East London Vintage Denim. It only speaks to Anna's creative problem-solving abilities that she's created such a short supply chain. Most of all, it's something that you can copy and paste no matter where you are in the world, not just the UK. And something that Anna really wants us to know is that she started her brand to help us fall in love with fashion again.